That was Klingon. Remain Klingon.
All right, let's try this again. Chris, if you don't mind, in 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to America's Pop Culture Magazine, Talking Trek. This is the second hour of a crossover between Breaking the Fourth Wall and America's Pop Culture. And as the name implies, we're talking Trek for the second hour. We've already talked Star Wars, now we're going to talk Star Trek. I'm your host, Dan Lauria, otherwise known as DC Lauria, otherwise known as Pops, but you usually have to be related for me to be called that one. We have on our panel and producing for us tonight, the one, the only Chris Dolly. Say hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
We have also joining us for the second straight week, Charlie Budo. Say hello, Charlie.
Hello, Charlie.
And this is the way the show's going to go. Joining us for the first time, we have Janice. I can't say her middle name, so I'm just going to go with Janice Sanborn. You can say her middle name for me if you want to.
That's all right. But online, I'm known as the Lady Renegade, so if you don't remember Janice or Sanborn, there you go.
There you go. And thank you, Janice, for not saying hello, Janice.
You're welcome.
And last but certainly not least, because this woman is singularly responsible for having most of the Star Trek people that actually were on Star Trek on America's Pop Culture Magazine last season, and that would be the one, the only, Cheryl Mack. Say hello, Cheryl.
Hello.
Oh, man, I was holding out for the Cheryl.
I almost said it.
All right, guys. So the thing that we're going to start with tonight is that I just finished watching Star Trek Discovery, the 4th episode, the latest episode that is out, and I actually bit my own tongue and watched it on purpose. As we said in the first hour, the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek is, in Star Wars, welcome to the dark side, we don't have all access. And it was a lot funnier the first time, I guess. I don't know if somebody laughed.
Well, you forgot the second part of it. You forgot the second part of it. The second
what did I forget to do?
The second part of it, which was we can't afford all access because the budget is in building another Death Star.
Oh, that's true. All right. And the Orville, which would have been Thursday's episode, so we're talking about a week ago. We're recording on Wednesday. Time travel. And so we're not going to be talking about the Orville that just came out by the time you hear this episode. So it is what it is. And that one was, what was that one? Okay, so last week we talked about the spaceship one, where they were in space, or they were on a spaceship where the people thought it was an actual planet. What did happen on Orville? Somebody tell me what happened on Orville.
You're asking me to remember.
That's how important it is. Nobody remember it. Somebody has to remember what happened.
Girl tried to...
Are you talking about the zoo?
Oh, Priya!
That's right. No,
okay.
no. Was it the zoo?
Yeah. Some
Priya.
tried to play him, and he got played, and oh, wow.
Oh, wait, I do remember the practical joke between the robot guy and the navigator, where the robot guy cut off his leg.
Okay. So, show fans who watch Star Trek Discovery.
This is a radio show.
I watched.
See my hand?
Okay.
I haven't watched it because I don't get all access, and I'm not going to.
Okay, so Cheryl hasn't watched it. Janice, did you watch it?
I watched half of it.
Half? Did you watch the first half, the second half, the better half, or the worst half?
There was a better half?
I watched the first half. I watched the first half.
Okay. Charlie, you watched it?
Yeah, I thought I'd never pay for it, but I am.
Okay. And Chris?
And Star Trek.
Well, see, I don't even pay for it, and yet at the end I still pay for it.
before we started recording.
The problem is
that's the way I feel about the Orville.
the problem is you wanted to start off with talking about a joke in its own right. I'm sorry. I promised I'd give it 3-4 episodes, and it hasn't gotten any better.
Well, I think it is getting better.
Yeah,
I really think it is. I mean, anything's better than the first two-parter.
Well, I will give credit that they are starting to seem to develop Michael Burnham's character a little bit more. I did like how she basically disobeyed the direct order of just using that parasite creature, to find its defenses and stuff of that nature, and actually used a little bit of emotion and science to learn, more about the creature and what it could or could not do. So I did like that exploration, and I did like the Will and Testament at the end. Beyond that, though, the rest of the Discovery crew, garbage. Throwaway, forgettable characters, I'm sorry.
okay, well, I think the difference...
That Braun guy is, I think, whatever his name is.
What, the guys who grows the spores in the mushrooms?
The head of the science department.
The one that's always arguing with the captain. The one that's making a real ass of himself with everybody.
Right. Okay. I think the difference between the fourth one and the first one is for the first time in this fourth episode, I actually started to identify, even if it was just a little bit, with some of the characters. I definitely saw that this science officer who basically said, well, if you don't like the way I'm doing things, I'm going to pack up my spores and go home. And the captain just looked at him and laughed and said, yeah, everything on this ship is property of Starfleet. And I'm like, wait, did the guy just literally say, I'm going to take my ball and go home? Did he literally just say that?
Yeah, he did. Yes, he did.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, but like, how many people in your life that have you met that, like, when they actually said that out loud and you said to yourself, or out loud to them, okay, you are actually as big as an ass as I thought you were?
I don't have to sit here and take this. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home.
Yeah. So I don't know if I
work for Microsoft, but I'm taking my stuff with me, okay?
Yeah. So I don't know if I identified with the character, but I definitely saw people that I've known in my life in that character. So I'm going to count that. I love the fact that the main character and the science officer still do not like each other even a little bit. Okay? And I still contend from last week that in its own way, the science officer and the main character are playing the parts of Spock and McCoy. They just
liked each other.
Except they liked each other. These two don't like each other even a little bit, but they're going back and forth the way Spock and McCoy used to. I like the fact... Go ahead.
The original series, Spock and McCoy initially did not like each other. That happened over time.
This is true.
And now you've got Discovery, and they're brand new. Like they're not buds.
But a lot of people will go back and forth with insults and stuff when they like each other, which is what Spock and McCoy did later on. And you could tell they liked each other, later.
Sorta, kinda.
Yeah.
Have you all heard the new theory that the captain may actually be from the Dark Mirror universe?
If that's true, I know I don't want to watch it.
Well, go ahead, Charles.
I don't know.
No, I'm just saying it would be an intriguing development because the captain is definitely bonkers and determined to win the war one way or another. It's just not, Starfleet. we talked about it before, that I like the show, I'm enjoying the show, but I'm really missing having somebody I can look up to.
Yes.
You know, just Star Trek. Star Trek, to me, was always somebody I looked up to. Even Kirk, you know, I was young and liked the fact that he was bumping into everybody in the universe, but I looked up to him. And that was a look. But no, seriously, every captain from Janeway on down, I admired. They had, no matter what happened, they had a code of honor.
Yep.
And honor is very important to me, and I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing a win against, you know, honor or anything else. I mean, we're going to win no matter what.
Right.
And you know, yeah. I'm not going to.
I think it's too early to tell.
Well, I think.
It's too early.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I think it's too early to really tell. And the reason why I'm saying that is because Discovery is today's Star Trek. It's meant to meet and reach new people today. And they're not trying to exclude us old Trekkies, but society is very different. Today's the age of rebels and renegades and people that don't necessarily have honor or follow the rules or do those things. And you have a captain that obviously will do whatever, whether it's ethically or morally corrupt. Just look at our government for a minute. Just pause. And I'm not saying any names, but I'm sure you can think of a few. And then you have
Wait a minute, Janice. Janice, you're the one talking, right? Was the person that you're thinking of mentioned in Back to the Future?
I don't know. I don't remember Back to the Future.
Does anybody get that reference?
Ronald Reagan?
Yeah.
Nobody remembers that in Back to the Future, Donald Trump was mentioned as being the president right now?
No, I didn't. I got to see that. I got to.
Now it's rewatch time.
When Michael J. Fox goes to the future to save himself and his kids, he's watching all the 102 channels, which, by the way, I was like, yeah, right, and now we have them. He said, Donald Trump's the president? And it's now. Like in Back to the Future, when he goes to the future, it's now. And Donald Trump's the president. And I'm like, okay, so basically Back to the Future and The Simpsons are better, are prophetic things. Basically, we should forget everything that we know and just go watch Back to the Future and The Simpsons and find out what we missed the first time. But anyway.
Nostradamus. You'd be proud.
The Cubs also win the World Series.
But Janice,
Well, he had made a joke about that, about Donald Trump and that movie. And that was a joke for a long time, so I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
And plus, I remember seeing it in the movie.
Well, because if anybody remembers, a lot of people said that a lot of that movie was more believable than Donald Trump being the president.
Right.
I'm still waiting on Jaws 19.
The suspension of non-belief was completely broken when he said, Donald Trump's the president? I'm like, yeah. Anyway, Janice, I'm sorry I cut you off. Go ahead.
So here we have it, in today's society, you have people that don't necessarily have a moral code or a sound platform of ethics. So honor can't be there. It's not, because honor goes hand in hand with those things. And this captain is pitted against a hero or heroine, whichever way you want to say it, that also has moral and ethical dilemmas and is a bit of a renegade. And so you have the rebel versus renegade, but both of them are people that what we were raised with for values do not match, but the values of the generations today, the younger ones, it does match them. And so we're really seeing a planned appeal towards that younger generation. I think it's too early for us to be able to go, there's a hero in here or there's not. Because the characters aren't really that developed. And honestly, I'm kind of a little worried because I don't know how well those characters will be developed over the course of the first season.
Well, how many are they're supposed to be doing? 15, right? It was originally supposed to be 13. It's now 15. So we're 4 in, which means they have 11 episodes for us to get behind, create a character that we can get behind. I'm still not seeing it yet, but what I did see in the 4th episode that I haven't seen up until now is that they at least stopped the action long enough for them to give us a story that we could look and say, okay, what's happening here? As a writer, I like trying to figure things out. I like to try to figure out where the scriptwriter is going with both the action, the intention, the plot development, the character development. And honestly, right now, I identify with the alien who talks to the spores better than anybody else.
Well, see, that's part of some of the things that are bothering me about the show. And I mean, I'm still going to watch it because, first off, I sit on a panel of a podcast talk show talking about Star Trek, so I better watch it and know what I'm talking about. But I'm hoping that there is some sort of development in it. It's going to be weird for me to say as I compared this show to the reboot of Battlestar Galactica last week, to where I like the dark and gritty of Battlestar Galactica. Going back to Star Wars, I love the dark and gritty of Rogue One. But I'm really not feeling the dark and gritty they're trying to portray here. I'm really hoping it starts taking on a flavor that is Star Trek. To take from Charles last week, where they start promoting it as a future I want to be a part of.
Right.
And I'm not seeing that right now.
I think that is the difference between Star Trek and every other sci-fi show that's ever been on movies or TV, is that in Star Trek specifically, like Charles said last week, Star Trek was about being part of a future that you wanted to be a part of. I don't see it in the Discovery. I kind of see it in Orville. I'm not really sure where the hell Star Wars is going, but that was hour 1. So we'll save that for next week.
Star Wars, in defense, Star Wars does have one little red herring to it.
What?
Is the fact that it happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So technically, Star Wars is the past, not the future.
Okay, I'm not sure where you went with that, but let's move on to the future. I guess, okay, so we know that there's speculation that Star Trek Discovery somehow is involved with Section 31. We've speculated on this show that this may be the beginnings of Section 31. The problem I have with that is that in the Star Trek novelizations, Section 31 is introduced in Star Trek Enterprise. Right now, Trip Connor, Commander Trip, the engineer of the Enterprise, that is supposed to be dead in the TV canon, is actually alive and well and working for Section 31. Don't know if that's going to be carried over into the new TV series, whether or not Section 31 has been around for what would be the last 90 years, or if they're going to go in a different direction. But
wait a minute. Trip Tucker from Star Trek Enterprise?
Trip Tucker is alive and well, yes. Yeah, I think I just used half of his character name and half of his real name. Like I said in the first hour, I'm crap with names.
No, I'm just blown away that he's still alive. I knew nothing about that.
He's still alive. He's working for where they are in the novelizations right now. Is they're right now in the novelization, Section 31 has a huge what's the word I want to use? It's like a spotlight, to use a wrestling term, Chris. In all of the series, Section 31 has showed up in every single main series of the novels. The original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. Section 31 is in every single one of them. And Section 31 actually has its own Star Trek Section 31 novel. Okay? So they're really playing up that storyline right now. And it's been hidden in Discovery. I think Section 31 is going to be a major player in both the TV series and the novelizations. The other thing that I think is going to come back into the TV series that's been rumored, and it's being played out in the novels also, is the mirror universe. I think we're going to see the mirror universe in Star Trek Discovery. I don't know.
It's already been announced. They said that there are going to be at least one.
There's going to be at least one?
Yeah. Actually, what's his name? Riker was in Chicago, and so was I, and he confirmed it on stage that he's part of it. He's directing. He directed the last one, I believe. So he's involved with the show. So he said, yes, there's definitely going to be a mirror universe episode, maybe more.
Well, see, that gives me some hope in the Star Trek Discovery. Not necessarily the mirror universe thing, but that Jonathan Frakes will be directing. You know.
Oh yeah.
That gives me some hope because some of the better Star Trek Next Generation movies were directed by him.
Well, Jonathan Frakes just directed this last episode.
Okay, well, thanks for ruining that thought for me.
You said you were looking forward to seeing it when you just directed the last one. So I'm going to watch the 4th episode. Maybe you'll be happy with it.
No, I watched the 4th episode. And quite honestly, one of the major things that bothered me was using that creature the way they did. You could see that they're hurting the creature. The whole entire concept of section.
That really did bother me. The fact that the creature was obviously hurting, and they were like, "Okay, we're going to use them anyway. Who cares?"
Yeah,
I don't like that kind of stuff.
And quite honestly, this Section 31 thing. Even in the older shows, I have a real issue with Starfleet, the pinnacle of human evolution, Starfleet, having a Black Ops division. I really, really am bothered by that. I
agree.
I really don't like this storyline. I don't. I don't like the idea of having this secret organization within, what's supposed to be the best government humanity has ever had.
Well, I'm about to drop some bombs on you guys. You ready? Because for this show, I was all over YouTube, and I added, I kid you not, if you go on to YouTube, Dan Lauria, Talking Trek, I added a new, because there's 2 Talking Treks for me. There's 2 Talking Trek channels, but if you go YouTube, Dan Lauria, Talking Trek, both of them will come up. I literally added 160 Star Trek references videos just today. In one of them is a review by Kevin Smith, and he basically drops the bomb that Rosario Dawson was originally, in their minds, the one that they wanted to play the character of Michael Burner. Okay?
Would have been a better choice in my mind.
What's that?
She would have been a better choice in my mind.
Well, and here's the onion. They wrote the entire pilot with her in mind, and then, after everything was all said and done, asked her if she wanted to the part? And she said, well, no, I can't because I'm in the Defenders.
Yeah.
Okay.
Disney wins
now,
again.
I ask, yeah, right. I ask all four of you. All four of you have had something to do. Well, all four of you have something to do with writing. Would you, any four of you, sit down and write something with the idea of someone playing this part specifically without asking that person first?
Yes, depending on what format of writing we're talking. If we're talking about performance art like wrestling or TV or acting in some way, shape, or form, then no. In a novelization, like right now, you know, again, cat out of the bag, I'm writing the prequel story to Academy Earth for Dan. Yeah, I would use somebody without their, for lack of a better term, without their permission, because it's just, you know, reference as opposed to, yeah, I expect you to play this part one day.
Oh yeah, well, but they're apples and oranges. I'm not talking about like what happened with Janice, where Janice is actually a character in Star Trek, named Sanborn. You can look it up. And the poor girl doesn't know if her character is alive or dead right now, even as we speak.
There's a possibility I might be still alive.
Yay!
There's a possibility that, you know, I might be just so.
It's like a Tasha Yar situation.
Like I said to you when I recruited you for Academy Earth, Janice, we'll make sure we keep you alive in our version.
Well, it depends. Are you going to wind up in my book?
No, because she's got her own backstory.
Dan's just scared because he knows Dan's just scared because in this book he knows I'm kind of Game of Thronesing it.
Yes.
Oh, everybody dies. We all get a turn.
That's gonna be the fun exposition. Dan and my character die in my book. Spoiler.
Right.
But yet we still show up in the modern day canon. Figure that one out.
Yeah, Chris had a very, very simple directive. What I told him is the same thing that I told all of you. Okay? When we start doing Academy Earth, let me deal with writing how we met and why you're on the ship to begin with. You guys get to create your own backstories, though. You know, who were you? What were you doing? Where were you doing it before you ever met Commodore Laurel? Okay? Chris has literally gone from A to Z and then back to B again with his backstory. It's like, in fact, I'm sorry Nicole's still not on the line, because when I described Chris's squadron going to the blood to the Terran space and the Blood Red Nebula, oozing out of it, Nicole's response was, "Ooh, I had to run in space." At which point I'm like, "Oh yes, you're definitely part of this cast, absolutely." But just to give you an idea of why I'm having a really hard time with Star Trek Discovery, the idea of Academy Earth, in a nutshell, is that every single one of the characters in Academy Earth has been handpicked by my character, Commodore Laurel, because in canon, at one point or another, the characters have had the Commodore's back, whether they realize it or not. Okay? And I'm pulling that right from real life. Every single one of you guys that are part of this recording, this podcast right now, in my mind, has had my back in a real life situation, whether you guys realize it or not. So not only have you been handpicked because I think you're good role players / improv actors, and the fact that you're all silly enough to actually say yes.
We are getting paid, right? No.
I always go back to the default. If I get paid, you get paid.
realm of the Miss Mantra right there.
Exactly. Okay.
That's the kind of answer I got in college. If you get some, I get some.
But the point being is, in a Cannoneer, if there's no identification with a singular character right off the bat, then at least there's an identification of, okay, this guy handpicked every single one of these people because in a situation that he knows we're going to be having to deal with in the future, and Chris, you know this one, okay, where everybody's going to have each other's back. He wants to make sure those people are already handpicked before we even walk into that situation. Okay, so there's that idea that these people know each other, even though if the connection is only between each individual character and the Commodore, at least he has an idea that when they come together as a group, they're all going to hit it off and do what they need to do at the end of the day. But there's still what Charles said, which is they're a future that he would want to be a part of. Okay? Now, the thing that I'm hoping and literally praying for, even though there is no God in the Star Trek universe, is that because they can travel anywhere instantaneously in space, that eventually the other shoe is going to drop and they're going to find out not just anywhere, any when. And I submit to you, just as a possibility, I'm not saying this is a real deal, I'm saying it's a possibility, I submit to you that even though they're calling Star Trek Discovery, what we're seeing and being told is Prime Universe, is it really? Or is the real possibility here that what we're seeing is actually either the mirror universe or an alternate reality that is caused because of this drive that they're messing with, which is, by the way, on the actual chip panel, it's called the Spore drive. Really? Anyway, your thoughts on that?
The ship runs on a psychedelic drug.
Yes, the ship is really running on the LSD.
Who has the mushrooms? Where are they?
Oh, wow, man. Good night, Borg.
Maybe that's power with mushrooms.
All right, let's reel it in for a second. All right.
Sorry, I had a heavy metal reference.
Let me put it to you this way. Going in alphabetical order, Charles, where would you like to see Star Trek Discovery go within the next 11 episodes?
I would like to see them somehow connect to the Prime Universe. And I don't even care how they do it. I understand that the whole we need to get a new audience, we need to work on effects that are not going to work. We're not going to do, POS effects. We're going to do something that's going to really wow everybody. I would just love for them to find a way to combine it all. And then give us characters that we're going to be proud of. Somehow this captain saves our butt somehow, and he becomes a hero. I'd love to see that. I like to see some heroes, and that's pretty much where I hope it'll go.
Okay.
Tie it up real nice, So.
Cheryl?
Okay, well, not having seen any of them yet, I can say what I would hope, how it turns out. Sort of the same thing of what Charles was saying. I like people that I can either look up to, or I can understand them, or I can think, hey, they're a pretty good person. Or even if they're not a good person, at least they've got something that's good about them, some redeeming quality. And I would like to see it go to the Prime Universe, even go back there to stay and forget about all that other crap. I mean, in my opinion, it's crap. And I like it when they show that. I mean, yeah, people will argue and stuff. I understand that because nobody is like perfect, and there's no such thing as a perfect universe, even in the future. But come on, to have people bickering all the time, and nah, I don't want that. I want heroes. I want good stories. I want to see them have a moral center. That's what I like, and that's what the older Star Treks had. Like going back to that thing you were talking about that alien, that I didn't even see that show, but I get the gist of it. They're hurting this alien, and it's in pain, and you know it's in pain. Well, now in Voyager, if you remember that one episode where they were killing those aliens to power that ship, and but the other ship let them see that they were wrong for doing that. So even though they were doing it at first, and they were like just putting it to the back of their mind, like, well, they got to do it to survive. Well, no, they didn't have to do it. You don't have to kill somebody else to survive. And they ended up realizing that they were wrong in killing those aliens. That's where I would like to see that go. If they're going to be doing that, at least maybe in the next couple of shows, to have somebody point out that what they've been doing was wrong. Sorry if I went on too long.
No, that's fine. Chris?
That's basically it.
Well, does the garbage bin count? No, I'm dead serious. If I have to suffer through Star Trek Discovery, I don't even want it tying into the Prime Universe, because I think they've already screwed up the story too much. I would rather it connect to the Kelvin timeline or the J.J. Abrams universe. I wouldn't want it connecting to the Prime Universe in any way, shape, or form, because I think they've already screwed it up too much 4 episodes in. Given my choice, I'd go back to the drawing board. I think they completely missed the mark of what Star Trek is. You know, and then again, I said it last week. I feel kind of guilty saying that because I'm a fan of a franchise where everybody's dogged the prequels because they're not as good as the original trilogy, or dogs The Force Awakens because it's not as good as, it's just a rehash of Episode 4. You know, so I feel kind of bad about picking on a new Star Trek, but this to me really isn't Star Trek. As we said in the last episode, Orville is more Star Trek than Star Trek is right now.
Right.
In my mind, I would go completely back to the drawing board with Discovery, because I think they completely missed what Star Trek is.
Okay. Janice, without giving anything away, where would you like to see this go?
Like I know anything. I just know the people who know things.
I know people.
Everything is just as much a surprise for me as it is for you. Where I would like to see them go. For God's sakes, chillax on the action-adventure crap. Sorry. That's like I like a good action movie, but if I want to see one, I'm looking for some dude in sunglasses and muscles that's gonna got weapon fire and is going against impossible odds. I'm not really looking for it in space, because that area has enough adventure. It doesn't need any more. What I'd really like to see is for them to start honing in and focusing more on relatable issues. And that's something that Star Trek has successfully done in all of the others, whether it was the cartoon, the comic books, and any of the other shows, with the exception of the newer movies. But I think that's what makes it appealing to us, that we have something that's relatable. It's not just about the characters, it's about the issues. It's about the things that we're facing and the possible solutions to that forward-looking and forward-thinking. So I'd really like to see more of that.
Actually, while she was speaking, it brought into mind something that I think may help Discovery get back on track. It actually popped in my head. Even with like something like Star Trek Voyager, where they were thrown into a completely different scenario from what the original Star Trek stories have always been, the one consistent that has been in every Star Trek except this one was exploration and learning about new cultures. Discovery doesn't do any of that. I think that would definitely help the storylines. If, okay, yeah, they're in a war with the Klingons. I get it. But maybe go back to Starfleet's primary mission, exploring strange new worlds and seeking out new life and new civilizations. You know, what Star Trek was founded on.
Well, and here's some interesting things that I want to bring to the table. Thanks to Janice, she brought to my attention that a lot of the people that are involved. Now, I knew about David Mack writing the first novelization for Star Trek Discovery because I actually picked that up last week. I have David Mack's Star Trek Discovery first novelization, and I have Will Stape's Star Trek Sex. Unfortunately, between us doing all these different shows, Breaking the Fourth Wall, Counting the Earth, Talking Trek, everything that we've been doing lately, I haven't really gotten past the introductions to either one of those two books, but I promise to get there. Chris, the same way that you read Kristen Stogel's book, I'm going to read these two, especially since I want to have Will Stape on the show at some point. But that being said, a lot of people that are involved with Star Trek Discovery are the ones writing the Star Trek novels that I have been following because, especially for the 50th anniversary, they've been trying to make all the novels canon, at least in the Star Trek novel universe. They're just not one-offs that have nothing to do with each other. They're trying to keep things consistent. And the writers that are doing the novels are very good at characterizations. Now, that being said,
sorry about that.
I noticed that there's a good news, bad news thing going on with Star Trek Discovery. The bad news is the other bomb that I'm going to drop on you guys that Kevin Smith said is that Star Trek Discovery is nothing more in his mind than them saying, okay, what's going to sell this All Access? They had no intentions of ever doing another Star Trek TV series. But because they wanted to sell the All Access, they decided to try Star Trek, the brand again, on TV in order to sell their All Access. It was done with Voyager when Paramount was trying to make the Paramount Network that I think failed miserably just as well as, unfortunately, this might. But the good news is that, and this is going to sound funny, I noticed that they've ripped off Doctor Who, and they've ripped off Star Trek Continues with this whole idea of this alien actually being the power behind them being able to go where they're going. Now, if they have no conscience about ripping off other shows that really have nothing to do with Star Trek, since they have nothing to do with Star Trek, I'm hoping that they're also going to rip off Star Wars. It's something that we talked about in the first hour, about Star Wars being about redemption. I'm hoping that instead of these characters and the situations that they're in being in this perfect world, in this perfect universe, like Gene Roddenberry envisioned, I'm hoping that they're purposely taking flawed characters that they're eventually going to redeem, that they saw that they were wrong about what they were doing, they saw that they made mistakes, and they wanted to learn from their mistakes. And by the end of the 15th episode, we actually have characters like every single one of you guys just said you would like to see that we can identify with. That is my hope, That if I can borrow from Star Wars, that is my final ray of hope in this whole thing, is that we have, like in Star Wars, we have Anakin Skywalker being redeemed by his son Luke. We have somebody taking the center stage to be a redeemable character to say, enough, this is bullshit, I'm not doing this, I need to pick up my moral compass, and I need to do what's right, regardless of what happens because of it.
Well, see, you bring up a very good point, Dan. And before I get into what I mean, 10 minutes left.
Okay.
With the redeemable thing, that I think that may be the one thing that really separates Discovery and helps it come along, is if they can actually develop. We know Michael Barnum is supposed to be the main character. We've had it thrown down our throats. I think personally, and this is purely speculation, I think if they develop Michael Burnham enough into a likable character, and she has a reputation of being a mutineer now, she rebels against the Section 31, and I'm doing quotations for people who can't see me, the Section 31 element of that's aboard the Discovery, and puts the ship back on track. She basically takes over command, overthrows Lucius Malfoy, I don't remember his real name, Lucius Malfoy's captaincy, and puts it back into, this is not what Starfleet is about. You know what I mean?
Now here's an interesting take on what you just said. Becoming attractions for the 5th episode is the Klingons actually capture Captain Orca. And Michael Burnham and the science. Does anybody know what the name of the science officer is? Does anybody remember?
Nope.
I'm just going to call him Ball Boy.
I think it's hysterical that we're doing a show called Talking Trek, and we're commenting on how little any of the characters are identifiable, and yet we're actually making the point because no one knows the name of the actual science officer in the show.
Well, that's exactly it. That kind of proves our point, because the characters are forgettable.
They are. I don't even remember the name of the cadet, to be honest with you. I know she's completely annoying. but I think it's really funny that the cadet is the only one that seems to have any redeeming qualities whatsoever, and yet she seems more annoying than anything else. Does anybody disagree with me on that?
But the whole entire character of her bothers me, because, I mean, she, like last episode, she talks about how she has all these allergies and anxieties and stuff of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong, from Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, when, like, they were back in time and McCoy gave that old lady a new kidney with a pill. Haven't we already figured out how to fix all those problems?
Well, but we haven't. That different timeline, though. Maybe they haven't come up with that pill yet.
Different timeline? You're talking 10, 15 years difference.
No, McCoy was still young. Okay, by the time we get to Star Trek, The Voyage Home, they're well into, like, what, 20, 25, 30 years after the original mission?
Well, from the original canon, from what I remember, the end of the 5-year mission to the Star Trek The Motion Picture was only supposed to be 5-10 years.
Right.
Separation. Okay, correction, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really you're talking 25 years.
Okay, so 25 years. So, and this is 10 years before Kirk even takes over the ship. So that's 35 years ago. My son, who has muscular dystrophy, who is 18 years old, I can tell you, I promise you this is true, that if my son was alive 20 years ago, he probably would not be alive. You understand what I'm saying?
No, I understand what you're saying, but let's take it the opposite end of the coin then in Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Phlox was fixing stuff like that with bugs and beetles 90 years before Discovery.
Okay, but do they have Denobalians in this reality?
If it's supposed to be the Prime timeline, and even the Prime or Kelvin still ties into the Enterprise, so yes.
See, we're getting back to continuity issues.
That stuff's a cop-out to me. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is, if you're, again, let's look at what, actually, let's do a roundtable question on this. Going around the room, if you will, do you agree or disagree with what Kevin Smith said, that there would not have been a Star Trek 6 TV series if it wasn't for the fact that they weren't trying to sell All Access? Cheryl, you go first.
Okay, well, I haven't seen the show yet, but I will be seeing it because, I have friends and that. But I totally believe it because I kind of have some inside information on it, so I kind of know that it's true. They just wanted to be able to make money, and they knew that Star Trek is a cash cow, and it's a big cash cow because Star Trek has the largest fan base on the entire planet over everything else.
I'll argue
and
that
so they
point,
figured
yeah.
they wanted to make money off of that. Pardon?
I'll argue that
They
point,
wanted to make money off of it.
but I definitely agree with what you're saying.
All right, Chris, you'll get your turn.
I am.
All right, Charlie, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I went blank. What was the question?
What I was saying is, do you agree or disagree with Kevin Smith's comment that the only reason why there is a Star Trek 6, Star Trek Discovery, the 6 TV series, is because they wanted to have something to push their All Access?
Well, they definitely wanted something to push their All Access.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they also want to push out the franchise. I think they are ready for it. There's talk of Universal Studios starting, since the Terminator attraction closed, they're considering opening up the Star Trek attraction at Universal. So,
and if anybody would know that, that would be Charlie, so go ahead.
So they're definitely wanting to bring it back, and I think they think it's time that they can. And the show is just part of it. I don't think it's for just All Access. I think it's just another step in their process of getting Star Trek back in the fold. I mean, it's a valuable property. They can't just there's already listed for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they found a way to do it without being controlled this time. I mean, last time all the shows were controlled by the fans. If they didn't like it, they basically ran it into the ground, and eventually, without anybody watching it, they canceled it. They did it with Enterprise, and they did it with the last movie. And CBS Access said, no more of that. Not only are we going to look for a bigger audience, but we're going to take away control from the old fans. Now, if you really want to see Discovery, you'll pay for it. If you don't want to see it, don't pay for it. But you're not going to run us into the ground. You're not going to start letter writing campaigns and say this show is so bad it should be off the air. Scare away all our advertising. They took control away from fans, and rightly so, I think, because if you don't support a show that you like, you're supposed to be behind us. It's going to be taken away from you. That's exactly what they did.
Okay, so interesting. Now, you had mentioned that before, so interesting take on that. Let me come back to you in a minute. Chris, I'm going to save you for last. Janice, what is your take on this? Do you agree or disagree with Kevin Smith on this?
I think yes and no. I think it's a collaboration. You got to remember that Star Trek is an intellectual property, and it's owned by two different companies. One has movies, the other has the shows.
Mm-hmm.
One has more control than the other. It is not as marketed as things like Star Wars and all of those. So they have a gold mine that's sitting there that actually could make more money. I mean, it's lived a long time. I don't think that it's going to die away, even if they decided not to do these shows. I think that part of the influence was the fan films, to be honest with you. And seeing so many people interested to invest their own money and so many fans willing to partake and participate, it just makes sense. So CBS All Access has to have a draw, but they have other shows that can do that draw too. So this is just one of their intellectual properties, so it's about time, quite frankly.
Okay. Chris?
Well, first I'm going to ask this Kevin Smith review. Was it Fat Man on Batman?
Yes.
Okay, so was Mark Bernardin a part of it?
Yes. If you go on my YouTube, Dan Lauria Talking Trek, Fat Man on Batman, yes.
Okay, I'll definitely have to check that out. I partly agree with him, and I think we also have a case of history repeating itself. I think part of the fact that Star Trek Discovery had wound up on CBS Access was because they were trying to promote CBS Access. Otherwise, it would have been on normal network television. But I think the reason that Star Trek Discovery even exists is not necessarily for CBS Access, but I think they are trying to get Star Trek back into the mainstream enough to be able to bring back the movie franchise. And the reason I believe that, if you remember back from the original trilogy's cancellation, not too long after, George Lucas made a little movie called Star Wars. And Star Wars became such a huge juggernaut success that it opened the door for Paramount to say, hey, we have this great franchise that we could do a space movie with and kind of ride the coattails and make our own little, movie adventures, which is admitted even by William Shatner is how Star Trek the Motion Picture even existed. I think Discovery came out because Disney bought Lucasfilm and has been releasing this juggernaut of a movie yet again in Star Wars, and now CBS and Paramount, separately or together, is sitting there saying, we got to try to compete with that. Let's bring Star Trek back.
Okay. I'm actually going to throw another hat into that conversation. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
Guardians of the Galaxy in the Marvel Universe was basically, what's that comedian's name, Kathy, who says she's a D-lister?
Oh, Kathy Griffith?
Kathy Griffith, thank you. Guardians of the Galaxy was not on their A list, their B list, or their C list. They were on their D list. The biggest fear when they started developing Guardians of the Galaxy for movies was that no one had ever heard of the comic book or cared. I would argue that in its own right, as much as I love Star Wars, as much as I respect Chris and Star Wars, as much as I love Star Trek, and that's my reason for, me having this show in the first place. God bless you, Marina Sirtis, wherever you are right now, hopefully in Hollywood, sitting there having a cup of tea with your husband or whatever. Okay. Anybody that doesn't know that story, I'll tell it some other time again. I think Guardians of the Galaxy opened the doors for other people to start saying, hey, no one ever heard of this show. They put this show together, and it was a box office success. Let's open the doors for ideas of doing Star whatever again. Star Wars, Star Trek, Valerian. I actually remembered the name that time. Whatever else is coming out. Hollywood and all of you guys on this panel, although I don't say who you are, well, I'm just going to say it like this. You're all insiders, so you can tell me if I'm right or wrong about this. This is not like rocket science. Hollywood sees something as a success, they start copying it.
Well, of course.
Right? That's sort of like a duh, right? Okay? One thing leads to another. Star Trek going, God bless Comic-Cons, okay? That led to Star Wars. Star Wars success led to Star Trek becoming popular again and going from a TV show to a movie and on down the line. One of you guys said last week that Babylon 5 wouldn't exist if it wasn't for somebody. In one of my YouTube researches, it turns out that the guy that actually was heavily involved with Babylon 5 actually had just come from Deep Space Nine. Okay, so there's it's a very small world when it comes down to it.
Well, it really is when you think about it. Like again, I'll use a Star Wars, Star Trek reference. Star Wars: The Original Trilogy. One of the major players in the special effects department, ILM special effects department, was John Dykstra, who was also the designer of the movie Enterprise from the motion picture.
Well, when I interviewed Marina Sirtis for Star Trek Next Generation, and no one was happy with their special effects, I remember this. I mean, this is back in, I think I did this interview in 86, 87, somewhere in the mid to late 80s. She said that the people that were coming in that were going to be doing the special effects for them the next season was Industrial Light and Magic. So again, small world, right?
Absolutely.
Chris, how much time do we have left?
It's about time to start saying our goodbyes.
Okay. I just want to say this real quick because we still have, this is episode 2, so we still have 11 more weeks of Talking Trek. I'm curious to see who our panel is going to wind up liking better. So just really quickly to go around the room, starting with Charles, and I'm trying to do this in alphabetical order. Charles, at the end of the day, when we're in our 13th and final episode of season 1, is it going to be Discovery, Orville, or somebody else altogether?
Both. I think I am enjoying them both right now. And,
Okay.
I'm really hoping there's still a lot of shows to go, so I'm going to hold my opinion until then, as far as if I really like it or not. Right now, I'm enjoying both. For whatever they are, they're entertaining me. Let's see what happens.
So you're saying both are in the running at the moment. All right. Cheryl, what do you think?
Well, I'm kind of like what he is. I kind of want to reserve judgment because I haven't seen Discovery yet. But the Orville, that thing, in my opinion, is so awful. I can't even stand to watch it. After the 3rd episode, I stopped watching it. It was so awful. But I mean, if you talk about it, I'll be willing to talk about how awful I think it is. But there's reasons. It's not like, I just think it's awful because it's not Star Trek. No, that's not it. Because whenever I watch a show, everything is on its own merits. If I like it, it's because I like the show, not because I liked what came before it. But I would just like to see a big variety of different things that we talk about.
Oh, yeah, we'll definitely get there, trust me. All right, Chris, at the end of the day, what TV show is going to have our sci-fi attention? Is it going to be Star Trek Discovery, The Orville, or another show altogether?
Well, to kind of play off of what Cheryl just said, where she's willing to talk about the Orville, even though she really can't stand the Orville. I know I've been being kind of harsh this episode towards Star Trek Discovery. I still have hopes they are going to turn this around and it's going to become a good Star Trek show. I'm hoping it starts becoming something that's recognizable to Star Trek. So by the end of the first seasons, I'm going to be on the same field as Charles and say I really hope it's both that are neck and neck, because I am really enjoying the Orville and I want Discovery to succeed, because I don't want to see Star Trek have a failure project.
I agree. Janice, same question to you.
I think it's going to be both because right now you have the Orville is the comedy and the issues creatively solved or ignored. And Discovery is, your action-packed, and it's kind of like they're segmented. So I think it's going to be both.
Just remember, we no longer have to fear the banana.
Yes.
Just got to worry about the oranges now.
Yes, the banana, the pickle, and the cucumber somehow or another always comes up in our conversations when we're talking about Star Trek and Star Wars and the Orville. A show that we haven't talked about at all because I don't know if we would consider it sci-fi, but we can have this conversation next week. Show just dropped from Marvel Studios called The Gifted. I haven't seen it yet. I would invite everybody on the panel to go see The Gifted, at least the pilot episode.
The first one.
Okay. So I'm putting it out there. If everybody wants to go see The Gifted, so we can... I know it's called Talking Trek, but we don't have to talk about just Star Trek the entire hour. Okay? If there's other things in the sci-fi science fantasy universe that we want to mention in passing or have a conversation about, I will put that on the table. Yes, Lost in Space. Lost in Space, another one.
They're both Star Trek and Lost in Space, which were competitors back in the 60s, are going to be on basically the same channel.
Yes. But in order to answer the question I asked everybody else, I'm going to put it like this. After watching the 5th episode of The Orville, with Priya coming back to the past from the future because she claims the crew of the Orville dies in that episode, and then trying to bring them back, and then he thwarts her and says, well, you just helped us create our own future by saving us. I figured there's no way the Discovery was going to recover from that because it's just like, okay, now they're doing the funny and the dramatic, and they just, drop the microphone with temple mechanics and all this other shit. And then I watched Star Trek 4th episode, and they're talking about being able to go anywhere in space with this new technology, and I expect the any when to come. And I am hoping that at the end of the day, we're going to be talking about oranges and bananas, and I know we're not going to fear the banana, but I'm hoping that both shows do so well that the panel winds up saying that there's room for both.
Well,
That's my take.
Personally, I could say there's room for both right now. I just fear for Discovery at the moment because I like I said, I don't think it's living up to the brand name that's tagged to it. I think it would be, like I said, I think it would make last episode. I think it would make a decent spin-off to Battlestar Galactica, but I don't think it's a decent spin-off to Star Trek.
Well, it's a rip-off of a lot of things. Unfortunately, Star Trek's not one of them. But that being said, another conversation we can say for next week is, why does there have to be even the conversation of Star Trek versus Star Wars, or in this case, Star Trek versus the Orville? If you're following Facebook and YouTube, there's an actual argument going on between the two of them, and it sounds like the panel is saying, well, why can't there be room for both? Anyway, that being said, I'm going to say this very quickly. Coming soon to a Realm of the Mist fan fiction base near you is going to be dropping a show called Academy Earth. And every single person on the panel that was part of the first hour and part of this hour is going to be on the show. The reason why you should watch or listen Fred first, hopefully watch later. The reason why you should listen to Academy Earth on realmofthemist.com is not because of the fact that I'm the one show running it, but because of the people that I picked to actually be on the show, which in this case is none other than Christopher Stolle, none other than Charles Brito, none other than Janice Sanborn. Janice, sorry, I can't pronounce your middle name.
None other. Don't need to worry about that thing.
Okay. None other than Cheryl Mack, Kristen Sobel, or Nicole Martinson, but the fact that what I'm privy to as the showrunner is that I've gotten the opportunity, the honor, if you will, to get to know these people as intimately as one can over the phone, okay? And as I stated in Facebook just this past week, I would not want to work with anybody that I would not want to break bread with. I can honestly say without a shadow of a doubt in my mind that if I could sit in a room and actually do a script reading with every single one of the people that's going to be on the show, I would in a second. And I'm hoping if I do my job well, that everybody that winds up listening to Academy Earth is going to wind up falling in love with everybody that's going to be part of the cast as much as I fall in love with these people as people, okay? Charles and Christopher, don't get any ideas.
Too late.
That being said, as Chris says at the end of the first hour, I'm going to say at the end of this hour, starting with Charles, how can people find you if they want to look for you?
They can find me in my personal page on Facebook, which is Charlie Brito, Britto, or find me through my current project, which is Star Trek Picard the Pirate, also on Facebook. So That's pretty much it.
Okay. Cheryl Mack, assuming you want anybody to find you, how can they track you down?
Well, basically the same thing. Cheryl Mack on Facebook and Cheryl Mack on Twitter, although I don't use Twitter that much. But I do have some people that contact me through Twitter for some reason. So just basically those two places.
Okay. Christopher Stolle, how can they find you?
Well, you can find me here on Talking Trek. You can find me with America's Pop Culture Magazine. I sit in from time to time. You can find me on Breaking the Fourth Wall every Saturday on RadioCastFM.com, as well as any other of the great Realm of the Mist shows here on Realm of the Mist YouTube channel and RealmoftheMist.com.
Ooh, well said. All right. Janice Sanborn, how can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, and probably anywhere else in the interwebs as The Lady Renegade. Very simple. One thing to remember.
The Lady Renegade. You heard it here, folks. Okay. My name is Dan Lauria. You can probably track me down on Facebook at Facebook/Dan.Lauria.33. I say it that way because if you look on Facebook or YouTube, you will also find Dan Lauria, The Wonder Years. I'm not that guy. I'm the other one. Okay? On YouTube, if you go to Dan Lauria, America's Pop Culture Magazine, Dan Lauria Talking Trek, or Dan Lauria All Fired Up if you want to find out what kind of music that I like, it's all there. And as of officially last week, more than likely, if you go on Realm of the Mist Entertainment or realmofthemist.com, I'm going to be all over that like a bad penny.
I just have to update the website, but yes, Talking Trek and all the people that are involved in the panel right now will have a bio and everything else. I just got to get the time to do it.
All right. So, Chris, as a producer, do you have anything final word that you would like to say other than count us out?
Bananas are a nutritious part of your balanced breakfast, but you no longer have to fear them.
What about fruit?
And you guys saying that stuff is funnier than it was on the Orville.
Hear that, Seth MacFarlane? Hire me as a writer.
Hey, no. You're still writing a book for me. You have to finish that one first. And Janice, don't forget, you're writing a short story for me. Your character.
Hi. Oh,
Okay.
yes, okay.
All right.
I am?
Yes, you are. We talked about that the other day. And for Charles Brito, for Cheryl Mack, for Christopher Stolley, for Janice Sanborn, I'm Dan Lauria, and you have been listening to a crossover of let me try to do this in order, chronological this time. Breaking the Fourth Wall, America's Pop Culture Magazine, Talking Trek, and yes, I did throw in a lot of Academy Earth references for the upcoming show. I got that from Chris. Every time he was on America's Pop Culture, he always did a toss to Breaking the Fourth Wall. Chris, I blame you. Anyway.
Hey, I look at it this way, turnabout's fair play.
Exactly. Hey, I hated that episode of Star Trek. But that being said,